This is me, Ivan Hunt, coming live from Miami, Florida. Don't hate me. You made your decisions. I made mine. This is a talk radio show called Keep It Moving. And what is Keep It Moving all about? Keep It Moving is all about inspiring, motivating, encouraging, and empowering people to take ownership over their life so they can regain control of their life, so they can live a life that's full of purpose, passion, and meaning. My guest today is no different. His name is Amari Gonzalez Hernandez.
Mm-hmm. Heywood, yeah.
Heywood, yeah, sorry. And it's funny, when I saw Heywood, I should know that, because my great granddad is named Heywood. His name is Heywood Hunt. You know, he passed obviously years and years ago. So when I saw the name Heywood, I was like, oh man, wow. You know, that's kind of cool. But today my guest is Amari. And Amari's a young, inspiring fellow, man. I think he's going to really provide a lot of information for business owners who are really trying to establish themselves on social media, and also maybe even in their websites on how to get picked up, you know, through the various search engines. I know I've had that challenge, you know, trying to jump off into my own. So without further ado, Amari, how you doing today, man?
No, I'm doing good. How you doing today?
Good. Now let our listeners know and viewers know, where exactly are you coming from?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm all the way in Salem, Mass. Represent where the witch trials happen, not too far from here.
Okay.
It's most famously known for and stuff. Right outside of Boston, so that's kind of the biggest landmark to kind of look for. So.
So y'all had a rough couple weeks, I guess, after the Cavs series, huh?
Yeah, really tough one, but I think we played really good, seeing as the pieces we had together for this year. So.
Yeah, good team, man. And you know, I agree. I think y'all overachieved. Not overachieved. I think you were exactly where you were supposed to be, and I think, you know, you probably should have won. But hey, LeBron is who LeBron is. So, you know, he was down here for a little bit, so I kind of know the frustration of having to deal with LeBron James. So without further ado, man, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, definitely. So I just recently graduated college and stuff too, and I'm just figuring out kind of life. So I got my first job as a sales development representative. So I'll be working in the center of Boston. My background's kind of been in marketing and social media, but I decided to kind of take a sales route so I could see both sides of the spectrum, especially because marketing and sales have this kind of hate for each other.
Right.
Having experience in both would be great to kind of see things from another point of view.
So tell me, what do you see a lot of people, where do their struggles come from when it comes to social media and trying to market themselves on social media? What are some of the challenges that you find people face with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think some of the big challenges that people face is not really knowing, you know, what their mission is or what their end goal is before they really kind of go into it. I think a lot of people go into a lot of stuff and see that other people have Instagram pages, YouTube channels and stuff, and instantly assume that's the right channel. But depending on the kind of message that you want to give out and who your target audience is will depend on the platform you use. And it's perfectly fine, you know, to be really kind of big on Twitter or something if that's where most of your customers are, and kind of ignore Facebook in that sense. And I feel like a lot of people try to attack too many different ones without really having an end goal or strategy. And it's just this obsession with kind of using all these different platforms and stuff and just seeing everyone else doing it.
Right. You know, we were talking offline before, you know, the show started. I told you that I resigned from my corporate career, and I resigned a little bit over almost a year and a half ago. And all I kept hearing was social media. You know, you got to have a Facebook page. You got to start a Facebook group, you know, and then you got to be on Instagram. Then you got to be on Twitter. And then you got to be on Snapchat and LinkedIn. And I'm like, oh my God, like, man, what, bro? You know, I never was on Facebook to begin with. You know, I was very careful about what I would post on Facebook for that matter. So how do you help people define or, you know, which approach or which platform they should really target?
Definitely. I think it really stems from who their target audience is. So a lot of businesses that do business with young professionals, I would say Instagram and Snapchat are the kind of way to go, where you're able to show, especially something like a life coach, where people can kind of see where you live, what you kind of go about your daily business and create that personal attachment. I think Facebook's better for just broadcasting your words out there. And I love to run Facebook ads because they're so specific on, so I can look up people in a specific area, people with certain interests that they like on that nature. Twitter is more just quick, catchy kind of, and then a link into a website. Whereas Facebook, or Snapchat can actually store that video content for people to kind of look into, which I think is huge. So it really kind of depends on your persona too. And as you know, a lot of old heads kind of more prefer Facebook and things of that nature, while a lot of young kids.
What are you saying? What are you saying? I'm not sure where you're going with that statement. Nah, I'm joking.
But, you know, the young ones do use Facebook too. But Facebook, I think, is the greatest thing for kind of small businesses, especially kind of stemmed around like landscaping, anything that's kind of really service-based. I think Facebook's a great place. You kind of see that with Facebook Marketplace, with groups and stuff too. A lot of them just have to be careful because there's this huge thing about creating like free Facebook pages and stuff. And I think that doing that, you can kind of get lost in the shuffle of who's an actual customer, who's, you know, just being nosy, trying to promote their own stuff.
Right.
But really doing things like creating like a paid group or just one where all your customers go to where they can kind of answer each other's questions. And when you have certain things like that, then you would see Facebook's more appropriate than, say, Twitter or YouTube or something of that nature.
Now, the one platform I've always struggled with is Twitter. I cannot figure out Twitter for nothing in the world. And I've actually tried it several times and actually moved away from it. And I think initially when I started this, you know, I was kind of geared in on Facebook and Instagram. And what I found as that it was really my temperament, right? You know, I'm a little bit more reserved. I'm very transparent in videos and so forth. But my life as a whole doesn't fit that Facebook model, and it really doesn't fit that Instagram. I don't have time to take a picture of what I'm eating every day and posting on Facebook or posting on Instagram. But what I found is I've gotten a lot better response from LinkedIn. And I think that's actually where you and I linked up. No, you know, no pun intended. But you know, how do you help your clients then to identify who their real niche audience is, and then which platform better aligns with what it is they're trying, you know, who it is they're trying to attract?
Yeah, definitely. It really stems from going down to like personal values and really creating like a buyer persona, which is literally sitting down and saying, all right, let's take a look into who our average customer is in their life. And obviously not boxing it into one, but saying, you know, this person is 40 years old. He works 9 to 5. So he probably wants to listen to a podcast on his way to work or on his way home in his drive or something too. Something of that nature. And then sitting down and thinking of, okay, what industry are they in? And how does that industry communicate? There's a huge revolution towards like Slack and these kind of things where you can quickly share and kind of update things. So I think it really stems down to like what their personal preferences are. And realistically, once you really sit down and identify like the traits of the person, what time they have during the day, you can also do social media research just to see what kind of common trends a lot of people in that have. And a lot of it's just overall, I think, creativity too. So just sitting down and, well, once you're really able to create that persona, then I think you're able to understand, like if you were saying, okay, I'm a young college student, you know, I'm 22 years old. You know, I watch YouTube instead of television. You know, I travel to and from work and it's about a half an hour trip. Then you can say, all right, we have a podcast. When you're sitting down at home, you might want to watch a YouTube video and stuff of that nature. But I think a lot of companies really struggle to really, really identify that persona before they start, because there's this whole trend that like people, you know, especially a lot of my friends that I help say, who's your target market? They say everybody. And I'm like, well, it's not everybody, you know,
Yeah,
you know,
work.
yes, you know, and, you know, and it really identifies like in life coaching, it's great to be able to say like, oh, I want to help everybody, but who's at the point in life where they're really willing to make the change, where they can see the impact. You know, you see a lot of people who get onto products or whatever. A year later, they're like, oh, I didn't like the product. And it's like, they didn't even know about all the features it had and they never utilized all that. You know what I'm saying? Especially Facebook, people are like, oh my God, like it just seems like you created a page. I got 100 followers. And I'm like, well, did you ever stem into using ads to kind of target? Did you ever do any kind of campaigns and stuff? And it's not until then that they realize, oh, I want to do this campaign, but I don't know who to target. And I say, why? You can't target everybody. Is that why? So that's
true.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's true. And I know going through my coaching program, my certification, right? One of the things they kept saying is, you know, what is your niche? Find your niche, narrow your niche down, be as concise as you possibly can be. And it really probably took me well over a year before, and when I say my niche, I'm also using elevator pitch interchangeably in this sense, right? And my niche / elevator pitch has become, I transform employees of life into CEOs over their lives. And so you ask a great question, well, like, who is that? Who is that person? What do they look like? Well, they kind of look, to me, I've had to go back and kind of redefine and say, okay, what does that person look like? Initially, my niche was geared more towards men and helping men with emotional intelligence and helping men work through issues. But that's a very difficult market to tap into. I can't imagine why, right? So tell me a little bit about, what's the term? Not demographics, but psychographics. Have you heard that term, psychographics?
Yeah, I've heard it, kind of glimpsed over it, but it mainly is, I think it's centered around like behaviors of certain people, and kind of attitudes that they have. So that's a huge thing, right? So in the past, I interned for a dude who does this emotional intelligence assessments and things of that nature too.
Right.
The target market was mostly men's, how that kind of is. As he found, a lot of his research showed that women are more emotionally intelligent in assessments and that things. But us men are just better. I'm just kidding. But
you're not married.
Yeah, not at all. So that's probably why I can say these things. Might have to clip them out. But yeah, and it was huge. It's like, what's the attitudes that these people have? And it's kind of a lot of the dudes that we were doing, it was family-owned businesses. So it was a father who was trying to pass the business on to a son. And what was the certain attitudes that the son had, versus what the father had. The father had concern, he wants to pass this down. This has been in the family for generations and stuff. The son's attitude is like, oh, it doesn't really matter how good a leader I am because dad's just going to pass the business on to me regardless. So working with that kind of attitude, it allows you to create a marketing statement where you can be like, are you a father of who runs a family-owned business, getting ready to pass it down, but your sons just don't know enough about leadership where you feel comfortable? Learn more about this learn more through this free consultation where we can talk about those things, rather than just saying free consultation, talking about emotional intelligence for your company. One is really logically based, and the other one really appeals to the emotions. And selling is all about that emotion. So when you're able to target that, people really feel they understand. And especially nowadays, you got a company that literally does every single thing you can imagine. You're on an online marketplace where there's thousands of people competing. So when you're going after it from that sense of logically based, that's what everyone's saying. And you really have to find a way to stem in that emotion that really shows. And that's why when you have that persona, you really understand where his mindset is. And then how can you fix the problem rather than trying to like create a problem to fix for him before you kind of ask. And I see a lot of people, they kind of bring out these companies and stuff. They never spend the time to sit down with their customers and see what they want. It's let me create this platform, then push it on to everybody else, versus like, let me talk to everybody else about what kind of platform we should create and then create it, and there's ways to test it, doing, A/B split tests and email marketing and all that complicated stuff. It isn't that bad, but once you're able to identify who it is you're helping, then you can help them rather than trying to help people before you know who you're helping.
I know when I first started out, I was doing a lot of Facebook ads, but really didn't know what I was doing. So obviously I was just throwing money away. And I went to a Les Brown seminar not too long ago, and I actually joined this program called Antonio Smith Jr. Business University. And he's one of the, leaders in Les Brown's institute. And he mentioned, psychographics and how to really start target marketing even on Facebook. And I just tested it out. I've only done it like maybe once, maybe twice, but we're just kind of picking things out at random, even though in my mind, so someone like me, right? I'm coach, I'm an entrepreneur, I understand numbers, but I understand who I want to coach. But how do, like you said, how do you get that message out? How do you create that marketing strategy, that marketing theme, so when I hit send, right, that it automatically appeals to who I'm looking for or who may be looking for me? How do I know the difference even? That's a good question too. Now I think about it. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm just asking, so for someone like me, if I'm your client and I say, okay, I know that I want to work with typically men and women for that matter in the 35 to 55 range who are encountering what I call not a midlife crisis, but a midlife awakening or midlife awareness. They realize, okay, I've done all these things. I did everything I was supposed to, got my degree, got a good job, got married, got kids. Now what? Life sucks. This is not what I thought it was going to be. How do I communicate that message to them?
Yeah, definitely. What kind of message, so I know I'm answering the right question?
Good question. The message of, you know what? Stop being an employee of life. Stop letting life tell you what you have to do. But instead, take ownership over your life and start telling life what life's going to do for you. In other words, if you're tired of your career, right, what steps do you need to take to transition out of your career into doing something that you're more fulfilled in and that possibly still meets that financial obligation or that financial, stability that you had in your corporate career? Does that make sense? Or help me out?
Yeah, definitely. And it's
okay.
It's a really good question too, because right there, I think you have $1 billion industry, man.
Well, thank you. That's wonderful.
You're welcome. So there's definitely potential. Sure. Yes. I think the main thing is to really, go to a couple of those people who are in those situations and really sit down and listen. I know that it gets harder and harder to kind of change as you get older. And, they say like your brain fully develops by 25, 26. And even a lot about it, I think being so young, it's like, if I wanted to go move to San Francisco, I could do that versus, 10 years down the road, I got a kid who gets accommodated to the system and stuff. So I think the only real way to do that is to really sit down and listen to them and see where their concerns are. You might be in a similar life situation yourself, which kind of helps, but and really think about the process of what made you change. What was, a lot of people journal, what was the kind of experiences they had leading up to when they thought, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. And I think it's one thing it's really tough because, you see it, you see how much potential these people have and it's right in front of their face, but it's just, it's stuck behind this, safety, security and stuff. But it's a constant reinforcing message, and I think it takes time, when a lot of people realize, it's not until they realize that they start working that, wow, this really isn't as much money as I thought it was, especially me thinking about, moving into Boston, the city, you're like, oh, I got a great city job, I'm going to be fine, until you realize life's expensive, you know what I mean? Yeah. That nature. But I think the main thing is to just be a constant reinforcing voice and really kind of say, get those testimonials from people who've been in similar situations to them and being able to say this was a single mother, who had a child and was able to create her own business part-time, and then really stemming into that emotion. Why is that important? Well, now her kid gets out at 2:00 and it's not her constantly asking her boss, can I go home early to pick up the kid from daycare and all this stuff. Now she has the freedom to do that. And I think once you kind of stem into those things and kind of target your market, it's really important. And a lot of it stems from, just even breaking it down a little bit more into separate niches, like, life coaching for single mothers with children who want to start a business, then having that segment and kind of going at them differently than life coaching for fathers, who are married, but, the wife stay at home and they want to be able to make sure they have enough income. And really kind of stemming into them and then interviewing those people and seeing one is seeing the single father who's, still working 9 to 5 and doing all that stuff. And then seeing one who was able to be an entrepreneur and kind of filling in what the process was like for transformations, just like you make transformations and stuff too. Because that's huge too. And I think that it's really tough because even in the world of, saying everything's great and there's so much that lies and hopes for you, which just, people don't see it. And it's kind of tough to get into that point.
And you're very insightful with that. I've actually been a single dad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've actually had to raise both my boys for, you know, a period of time. And I had to get up in the morning. I had to get them dressed. You know, I had to get them breakfast fed. I had to get them to school. And they went to school in 2 different counties. I just happened to work kind of right in the middle of both of them. Get off work. You know, I had to leave at a certain time so I could pick the little one up before 6, before the after school care program closed. And then had to drive down to Dade County because my other one was playing football. And then didn't get home till 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Now I got homework to do. Now I got to get them cooked. Now I got to get them, you know, ready for bed and put them in bed. And then by that time, it's my time. It's like, whoa, I'm exhausted, you know, and then actually go through a 4-year custody battle some years down the road later and actually win majority time share of my boy. So, you know, just the analogy that you use, you know, I can relate to. And I think that's one of the things that maybe I could probably do a better job is bridging that gap. Intuitively and intellectually, I know who it is and what it is, right? But I don't know if I have that marketing capability, right, to be able to articulate that. And, you know, because the communicator is only as good as the listener can, you know, formulate whatever is being said. And I've listened to you several times, and you've used the word listen. What is some of the tools that you use to be a better listener?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a ton of tactics and stuff too, and you know, it's eye contact, it's good body posture, it's engagement. But I think a lot of people are like, "What does it take to be a good listener?" And I'm like, if you're just listening, you don't need a tool. You know, all you got to do is just, you know, focus on that stuff. And I know it's tough too, especially in this day and age, because there's so many. I was reading something that said the average boss gets like interrupted every 3 minutes at work, whether it's an email, a phone call, someone coming in and stuff too. But I really think taking that time to, you know, put yourself in a situation where you're one-on-one with someone, you're away from distractions and stuff too, is really important too, because I've had a lot of meetings with friends and stuff too, and clients as well, where, you know, you spend 30 minutes just, you know, talking about, you know, stuff, which is great, but it's like, you know, they're on the clock, you know, you want to get something from it. In that sense. But I think it's really like really understanding that everyone has like their own different life. And, you know, you take you and your brother, right? And you grew up with the same mother, the same family, went to the same school and stuff. But there's so many hours of the day where they're going out having completely different experiences that you never would have even imagined. You know what I'm saying? I look in the background right here and I'm like, oh, beautiful Miami, man. How's that? Like, you know what I'm saying? And just these whole experiences that people have had that you've never gotten to. And the only way to understand those is to listen. And, you know, there's the classic, you know, you got one mouth and 2 ears, his mother would always used to say and stuff too.
Right.
But I think it really, I think one thing people underestimate is that listening takes effort. You know, it's not like, it's active listening. It's not passive listening. You know, passive listening is like someone talking while you're texting and stuff and all that. But really being active is just all about being in the moment in terms of techniques. I think it's just, you know, putting yourself in a good, you know, getting pumped up, getting excited, kind of doing whatever you do, keeping that eye contact, but then also just appreciating and being empathetic of the person across from you that's got to experience all this stuff that you never get to see until VR and all that stuff allows you to go anywhere in the world. But until then, you know.
Right. But that's true. That's true. And you know, it all starts with imagination to begin with, you know, as far as the VR and stuff. You know, Amari, I'm really impressed with you clearly, I think you found your passion. I think you have found your niche in life. And I think whatever direction you choose to go in, you're going to be successful. What are, you know, if there is 3 things that you could offer, you know, to close out with, to help some of the listeners, you know, a young entrepreneur or somebody who's trying to start a speaking business or whatever type of business, and they're going to really start their market. You know, what are 3 tips or 3 questions that they can ask themselves you think would really get them moving in the right direction?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the first one is, who am I surrounding myself with? Surrounding yourself with really good people inspired to do great things. You know, if you have, you know, several friends making $10,000 a month, it's only a matter of time before you're making that amount, because in order to fit in, you know, you got to be with them. You know, I think the other great question is, you know, why am I doing it in the first place? That's huge too, because I'm a huge proponent of reverse thinking. So thinking what's the end goal and then kind of working your way backwards to the steps you need to achieve. But it's because it's really hard to set goals like, oh, I want to make, $4,000 a month if you don't really know why you want to, because it's great when everything's easy, but when everything gets tough and you start questioning yourself, if you don't have that answer for why, you're just not going to make it. It won't be authentic enough. You're going to have no reason. There's going to be some nights where it's 10 o'clock and you want to go to sleep, but you got to put in another 2 or 3 hours of work. And when you know why, you just do it. I used to set up events and stuff too. And, there would be some days where it's just cool. Some days where it's like you got 6 hours with 12 hours of setups, it seems like. Mm-hmm. And, it'd get to like 9 or 10 o'clock and, eventually be 12 and I'd be like, man, I'm still tired. But really just whatever it takes, putting that good music on, all of a sudden that second wave hits. And I think that's something that I really admire about a lot of entrepreneurs is really when that first wave, there's all those people who say, all right, I'm done. But when that next effort comes in, there's this sudden push. It's like you start giving all you had and all of a sudden you realize that like what you were doing before was only 10 or 20%, and all of a sudden it's like, all right, let's get this done.
Yeah.
And, I'm a big believer in there's the concept of, when you're wrestling a bear, you don't quit when you're tired, you quit when the bear's tired,
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing too. And third, I want to get your opinion for the third question.
Uh-oh. Caught me off guard. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Go ahead. What is it? What do you want? I'll tell you.
So I guess what's your answer to the question? So what is it that you believe the questions they should ask themselves?
I like where you went. Who do you surround yourself with, right? So one of the things that I say about becoming a CEO over your life, mm-hmm. Ultimately you're in charge, right? But a CEO, there's different facets to an organization. You got a chief operating officer, you got a chief financial officer. You got a chief marketing officer, you got a chief, information officer. I mean, you got all kind of chiefs and all kind of officers with all kind of second word descriptions and adjectives of whatever it is they need to run. But ultimately, that CEO still has a board of directors that they have to report to. And I think that board of directors is really critical. And that board of directors is your belief system, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Those you surround yourself with, those are your C-suite. Does that make sense? That's your council. Your C-suite is your council, or the C-suite is your group, your inner circle. But mm-hmm. that board of directors is imperative, that you have to have that strong board of directors. And in my case, it's my belief system. It's the thing that I believe in, because that's where I go seek my guidance. That's where I go seek my counsel. That's where I go seek my wisdom. That's where I get answers to my questions, that innately I'm supposed to know, so I can pass that information down to my C-suite. I think the other one is, I think you're right. Why am I doing this? I coach because I love people. Mm-hmm. I love helping people. I love watching people succeed. I love watching people be successful. And more importantly, I love knowing that, I had something to do with it. Selfish, right?
Yes.
It is. But I get such a warm feeling. To me, it's a very intimate interaction that takes place when I'm coaching a client and I just see their light, the light bulb goes off in their head and they're like, oh man, I never thought of it that way. See, that's something, that's just a split second interaction that they'll never share with anybody else. That mm-hmm. it was, that moment in time was just with you. And you had something to do with changing their life in that split second. And to me, that's powerful. That's impactful. That's something that creates a legacy. So if we're going to use the term CEO and deal with a corporation and realize that a corporation lives long past the CEO does, right? So mm-hmm. that's your legacy. You created that change for somebody's life. That's your legacy. And I think the third question is, and to kind of go back to the second question as to why, because you're right. When you start off your own business and you become an entrepreneur and you jump out on a leap of faith, you leave that security of that corporate job, that you have the health plan, you have the retirement accounts, you have all these things, and all of a sudden you jump and it's gone. It's scary. it is absolutely one of the most petrifying things I've ever experienced so far in my life. And I've done a lot of crazy stuff in my life, but nothing has challenged me more to this point than to have to be dependent upon my wife in areas where I used to wouldn't be dependent. Having to reach out to people and ask for guidance and ask for wisdom. I don't know about marketing, but Amari does, right? And so I have to humble myself to somebody who's probably 20 years my junior, but who clearly knows more about it than I do, because how else am I going to learn? So even though that initial wave that you talk about, which really clears out the path for everybody else, and then that second wave still kind of weeds out those pretenders who have a little bit of fortitude, maybe they had a little bit of capital to sustain past that first wave, and then the second wave comes and it wipes out the rest of the capital, and then that third wave comes. And I think that third wave is where you're forged in the fires. A champion is forged in defeat. Gold is forged through heat, right? I always tell my son, either you're going to be a piece of coal or you're going to be a diamond, right? Pressure, pressure compounded on that coal, it's either going to turn it to dust or you're going to be able to survive that pressure. And if you can survive that pressure, you're going to turn out to be a beautiful diamond and you're going to shine. And so if you could really handle that pressure and realize that at the end, it's going to crush some and it's going to turn to coal or dust and it's just going to go back to the earth. But then there's those rare few gems who turn out to be big diamonds and they shine. And that's what separates those who do versus those who don't. Can you handle the pressure? And that's what you get paid for in this world. You don't get paid for what you know. Innately, everybody gets to a spot where they kind of know about the same things, particularly in corporate. And even in the entrepreneur world, there's only so many experts, there's only so many topics. But who can handle the pressure? You get paid for how much stress you can handle. That's what separates people. And then the other one is, man, what are your three values? What are your core values? And if you understand, like you talked about earlier about your personal values, who are you? And then that's how you kind of start niching your market. I didn't mean to take this thing over, but you just kind of got me going. That's a great question. You got me going. But but that core value, my three core values is family, service, and money. Well, my family comes first before anything. And that was part of the reason why I made my decision to leave my job. The second is service. I love serving people. I love helping people, and I've kind of already mentioned that. Well, if I don't have money, I can't take care of my family. I can't serve people. Yeah. So that's where money comes from, and I'm learning, and I've had to redefine what money means to me, right? Because I've gone from different places of scarcity to abundance and scarcity to abundance. So I've had to redefine as I've gotten older what money really means to me. So I didn't mean to take I didn't mean to give a long-winded answer on that question, but it's a great question. And any other questions you want to ask me while we're at it? You can interview me now. How about that?
I know. No, it's just great to kind of get to learn and do all this stuff. But I don't know. What do you do for fun down there in Miami? Because it looked really nice and it kind of rainy up here and stuff. So,
yes. My son plays basketball, so he's playing AAU basketball. So I'm spending a lot of time with him going to different tournaments. We were in Orlando last weekend. We're going to Mississippi in 2 weeks. He had a tournament this past weekend. When I got back from the tournament, my wife and my daughter were at the pool. I stay right here on the marina, so I get to watch the boats come in and out. Really, I just spend a lot of time with my wife. My wife is my best friend. And so she and I spend a lot of time together. And whenever we're together, it's fun. So that's what I do for fun. Now, when I was your age, my answer would be a lot different. But I'm smarter and wiser now. I won't incriminate myself. Amari, young man, you are a remarkable fella. And you are going to go, I said it earlier and I mean it, you're going to go big places. And if there's ever anything I could do for you, do not hesitate to reach out to me. And, ladies and gentlemen, I'm kind of wrapping the show up with Amari. I enjoyed this interview. I love your passion. I love your fire. I love your enthusiasm. I love your knowledge for your subject and your topic. I love how intuitively you're active listening, as you mentioned. And I really am impressed with you. I think you're going to go far. So without further ado, hey, this is me, Ivan Hunt. I'm the host the talk radio show called Keep It Moving, but this is the video series. Hey, if you're ever in Miami, holler at me. You can find me at ivanhunt.com or email me at coach@ivanhunt.com. Peace.